All right, welcome to the Sweet Talk. Today is Monday, May 4th, 2020. What do they say? May the fourth be with you for all
Happy
you
Star Wars Day.
Star Wars fans out there.
I got my Star Wars shirt on. Yeah.
Yeah, look at you. So today is that day, and welcome to the Sweet Talk. I am your host, Kim Matina. I am a Google certified trainer and educator, as well as a gold product expert for the Google for Education team and a technology teacher. And today, I'm so happy to have my friend on my show, Mr. John Sowash. John comes to us from Michigan, and he is a former high school biology teacher and principal who helps teachers use technology to improve instruction. Woohoo! Well, we are all busy doing that nowadays, aren't we, John?
That's it. Yeah.
So welcome to the Sweet Talk.
Thank you, Kim. Great to be here. I've followed your journey for many years. Honored to be a guest on the show.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to have you on. And this is not your first rodeo on my show. You've been on my show
a while ago.
Yeah, a long time ago you were on. I was looking up my my notes, and it was like the first year.
Yeah, I think it was before the show was officially a podcast. I think mostly you were just on YouTube at the time.
Yeah.
Now you're all over the place.
Well, you said to me, it's not that hard to make it a podcast. So then after that, I looked into it, and so that's how it became a podcast.
That's
so
great.
Thanks for those, that advice there.
My pleasure. I have a podcast as well, and consistency is the most important part of podcasting, something that I have yet to master. I can't seem to get an episode out every week consistently, but I am very impressed with your consistency with this show. Like every time I open up my podcast app, there's another episode of the Sweet Talk ready for me to listen to. So congratulations. Excellent work. I know it's hard to maintain that consistency, but it pays off.
Well, yeah. Thanks, John. I appreciate those kind words. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing these days? And, then we'll get started.
Yeah, well, lately I just mostly hang out on Zoom and Google Meet. That's pretty much all I do, probably like most people out there. The quick version is I was a high school science teacher who enjoyed using technology. This was back when technology was a thing you did like once a quarter. And someone introduced me to this thing called Google. At the time, it was initially just the search, and then it was Google Docs, not Drive. It was just Docs, and then Blogger and YouTube, and slowly got into it. And over the course of a decade or so, it became kind of my passion using Google tools in the classroom. So now I've kind of unofficially known as the Chromebook guy. I have a book, The Chromebook Classroom, and that's my podcast as well, the Chromebook Classroom Podcast, which just talks about the use of Chromebooks as an instructional tool. In my opinion, the Chromebook is the best device for classroom teaching and learning. I know those are fighting words for some people out there, but I just think they're so flexible, simple, and can do pretty much anything you want. And that's what we're going to chat about here today a little bit. So I'm excited to dive in to it with you. I am a full-time Chromebook user. People are always surprised. It's the only device that I use. I do all my podcasting, video editing, image creation, everything, 100% on a Chromebook.
Okay, so
encouraging others to do it, then I got to do it.
What kind of Chromebook do you use?
Oh, it depends on the day, I have two that I use. So in my office right now, I'm using the HP X360, which is not a flashy Chromebook, but it's really good. It's very affordable. You can get it down to like $399 at Best Buy, but it's a super powerful Chromebook. It's a little heavy, so I don't travel with it. So this one stays in my office. It's the most powerful Chromebook that I have. So HP X360, it's a touchscreen. And then I use the Pixelbook as well. So I have the Pixelbook, which is a marvelous device. That's what I travel with. It's obscenely expensive, like it's ridiculous. But it's my full-time device. If you're comparing it to a MacBook, it's cheaper. But if you're, looking at it in terms of Chromebook, it's a ridiculously expensive device. But I'm the Chromebook guy. It's what I do.
I'm right there with you. I got my Pixelbook, and that's my go-to device. And I'm actually looking into getting another Chromebook because nowadays I am using my Pixelbook and connected that with another monitor. And then I have another slow Chromebook that I bought for school, not to handle any of the workload that I'm doing. And it's not good enough. So I'm looking into getting something, and I'm thinking about getting the new Pixelbook Go.
Yeah, the Go is a good option. I'm a little disappointed that it didn't come with a stylus with touch. Well, it has touch, but not a stylus. If you're not huge into stylus, you're a Jamboard girl, though. So I think you're going to miss the stylus. I'm looking at the Samsung Galaxy Chromebook. That's kind of the newest, latest, and greatest. I'm a little concerned about the battery life because it would potentially be my traveler. So I'm kind of waiting to see where things fall with that.
Yeah, I read a review about that, and they said that the battery life was like a negative.
Correct.
On that, because I was like, oh wow, this isn't bad. This doesn't look too bad. And then I got down to the battery, and I'm like, oh geez, no.
Yeah, this is not everybody agrees with me, but for me, a stylus is now essential. Like I just have to have one. So I have the Pixelbook pen, which is awesome. The HP has a touchscreen. I had to buy an aftermarket stylus, which works, but it's not great.
But you know what? You went from like the Mercedes
Correct.
down to the
Toyota.
Chevy. Yeah, I mean, but because you go from the Pixelbook to an HP with that type of device, and you're not going to get that kind of accuracy and feel.
Yeah. I love annotating. We're actually going to talk about that a little bit, but there are more and more tools that allow you to annotate and draw on the screen that it just adds so much additional capabilities when you have that stylus.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll pick your brain after the show about your device.
Yeah,
I have questions for you that I want to ask you, but we'll talk about that after the show.
Sounds good.
So the Chromebook guy. So what are we going to talk about? I know you have a lot of tricks up your sleeve that you want to talk about. So something that you were referring to before was in the accessibility features in the Chrome OS.
Yeah, I'd love to share 4 or more little tips and tricks for utilizing Chromebooks either as a teaching tool. So if you're a teacher and you're doing remote learning, you know how much work that is, some tips that'll help you work more efficiently. And also for students, these all work for students as well. If they're learning on a Chromebook, they can utilize these. So these are things that I use on a daily basis that hopefully will help you as well. The first one, as you alluded to, is dictation. So Chromebooks have a pretty robust set of accessibility features. If you enable them, so you have to go into settings and turn them on, there's dictation. So that's speech to text. You've used it on your phone, I'm sure, but it puts a little microphone icon on the shelf. So that's a black bar at the bottom of your Chromebook. And I can just go into any text field, click that microphone, and start talking. And I can dictate emails, documents, or my favorite, Google Classroom private comments. So what I've started to do is, when I'm in classroom, is just dictating my private comments. And it's just, they're not long, but, when you have to do 100 of them, it just takes a lot of time.
Time consuming.
And I'm just sick of typing.
It's built right in. Like there's no Chrome extension that you have to install. There's no website you have to go to. It's built into the Chrome OS. I actually was using it recently because I had elbow surgery. And on my dominant arm, and I need accessibility features turned on because I can't type as well as I was before. So that dictation is like awesome.
Yeah, it uses the same technology as the Google Assistant. If you have an Android phone and use Dictation on your Android phone, it's the exact same thing. It's highly accurate and super easy. So that's my first tip. That's just a productivity tip for, look, you business owners, teachers, students. Dictate. Saves time.
Anybody.
The second one that I'd love to share is a relatively new one, but it's hidden. You'd have to pay pretty close attention in order to see it. And it's called Virtual Desk. If you are a Mac user, Mac devices have this feature. I've had it for a long time. It allows you to set up to 4 virtual desktops. So how, why, what does this matter? How do I use it? It basically allows you to create 4 monitors. And so as you probably are learning, you're spending all your time in front of your computer. You may have 3 or 4 different preps. You may have, productivity tools. So Gmail, Drive, and Calendar. And then you've got all of your lesson planning material and got Google Classroom. So you could potentially set this up so that your first prep is on the first desk, your second prep on the second desk, and everything's easily organized. What you need to do, you're going to have to be on a Chromebook to see and understand this. The top row of keys on your keyboard are kind of cryptic, very hieroglyphic looking.
They have a different interpretation.
Yes. And there's not a lot of explanation given to them, but right in the middle. So typically, it depends a little bit on what device you have, but typically right above the number 6 is what's called the switcher key or the window overview key. And this is the Mac feature. If you press that window overview key, it shows all of the different apps, tabs, windows you have open. But in the very top right corner, it will say New Desk. And you can click that up to 4 times and then drag your windows into one of those 4 different desks. Now, I have 2 monitors. So, right now, Kim, you're on my HP Chromebook, but over to my left, I've got a second monitor where I can see our show notes and kind of outline of our conversation. But if you don't have that, that's what the virtual desk is for. So you basically get 4 monitors, and you can switch back and forth between them. So it's really helpful. Another kind of useful way of looking at this. I know a lot of teachers are doing Zoom calls, Google Meet calls, and they're sharing their screen. Well, sometimes you should be a little concerned about the possibility of accidentally displaying in front of your entire class your email, your calendar, your grade book, or some other private information. It's very easy to do. So you can hide all of that private information on, desk 3 or 4, so that when you're presenting, you'll know that you're not going to accidentally click a tab and there you go. The grade book is now being displayed in front of your entire class.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So it just kind of allows you to tuck away those things without actually closing them out. So
now let me ask you this, because I never used a virtual desktop before. And I actually never really heard of it until you had posted a blog about it back when it first came out. Mm-hmm. And then I was experimenting with it, but then I got away from it. But it's a good analogy to say, hey, it's like 4 monitors that you can have. Now, on each desktop, you can have, different users logged into it. If you go into a new tab.
No, they're all the same. So it's just your windows. So, you would grab a tab and drag it to one of your 4 desks. The Chrome login is a little different than Windows or Mac. So you log into your Chromebook and that's like your primary account. Now within the browser itself, you can sign into multiple Google email addresses. You're still signed into your Chromebook from your primary account, but you can set up, secondary, tertiary accounts as well. I mean, that's what I have.
Through the browser though.
Yeah, through the browser. You can't do the profiles like you can on a Mac or a PC. Okay.
But at least I can sign in to desktop number 2 and then and then sign into my other account through the browser and then access Drive and Mail and do all that. So that's good to know.
Yeah, it's an easy way to organize those different accounts or resources.
Now, let me ask you this, John, because, you know, with managed Chromebooks now, with school issued Chromebooks, that feature may be disabled in the domain. So where do you know where in the domain in the admin console where you can go and just turn that on?
Desks or multiple login?
Both.
The desks are not. I will try to double check, but I do not believe the desks are a feature that you can enable or disable. It's just on. It's kind of like tab. Like you can't turn off tabs for the Chrome browser. I do not believe there's an admin console feature for the virtual desks.
Okay.
There is a restriction about logging into multiple Google accounts. That one's really complicated. It's located in several different places. But most schools will prevent students from signing in to a Google account other than their school one, because they would potentially be able to bypass all the other settings.
Right. Because like right now, I have to log in, like I'm a Google administrator, but I just handle like, you know, my school and the apps and the accounts. I don't do the whole district. And I have to log into my account and then go to incognito mode.
Right.
And then move that over into another screen. And then I have to log into my personal account because I have to work in those two accounts. So, and because it's disabled for me from logging in, you know, like on my Chromebook, I can switch user accounts and you know, with my managed school account, I can't do that.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's very inconvenient for me. So that's why I was asking, because, you know, I might be able to enable it just for the teachers.
Yeah.
Of course, not for the students.
Yeah. On a Chromebook.
If it's difficult, then don't even worry about it, because, you know, that admin console is a bear. It's
a bit tricky. On a Chromebook, I don't do the fast account switching because I have the same issue. I just log in through the browser I got 9 different Google accounts I'm signed into. You know, everybody puts out, there's all these blog posts that everybody puts out about, you're doing it wrong. This is the right way to sign in. And I'm always kind of annoyed by those posts. They are correct as long as you're using a Mac or PC.
Right.
But those instructions don't work for
not for Chromebooks. No.
So I do it the way that they say you're not supposed to do it on my Chromebook, because it is the easiest way.
Yeah, and I'm finding that as well on my Pixelbook, because in school I have a Windows computer that I would just save profiles of my Chrome user on my desktop, and I would just switch back and forth to all my different accounts, no problem. But now, since remote learning, the ability to do that is not easy. And for me to go into incognito mode every single day, and if I want to do something, it says I can't do this because I'm in incognito mode.
Right.
And it's really inconvenient, you know. So yeah, on a Chromebook, it's not that easy. You have to have multiple profiles within your Chrome browser set up so that you can switch your account.
Yeah, that's what I use. My personal Gmail account as my primary Chrome. So that's my Chrome account. So all my bookmarks, extensions are saved to my Gmail account. And that allows me to, if the first account you sign into is the kind of the master. So if you sign into a master account that has restrictions, anything you put under it, those restrictions apply to it as well. So I use my personal Gmail as the master, and then I'll sign into the school accounts underneath it because they're not subject to any restrictions.
Right. I'm right there with you.
You got it. You figured it out.
I feel your pain, believe me. All right. So what is your next tip then for Chromebook accessibility.
Yeah, so this my third tip. This is another productivity tip, both for teachers and students. Super simple, but very very useful. Is to pin your tabs and clean up your bookmarks.
No, really?
Yeah, even more nice. So pinning a tab has nothing to do with Pinterest.
We got to be organized.
Pins and bookmarks are two very different but related things. Any website that you visit and you leave open all day long, you should pin. So a pinned website is open and accessible instantly. So for me, I'm looking right now, I've got 3 tabs that are pinned. No surprise. Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive. I never close them. They're always open. It might be Gradebook, Google Classroom, Planbook, whatever your go-to sites are. They're always open. So you're going to right-click on the tab. You'll see a bunch of options. One of them is pin, and that will squash the tab down, makes it tiny, slides it all the way to the left, and locks it in place so that you cannot accidentally close it or lose it. This is particularly helpful for those of you who are tabaholics. You know who you are. So that's the first part of this tip. So the websites you're always using, you're going to pin. Now, the other websites that you refer to frequently, but maybe once or twice a day you visit, those you want to bookmark. You're probably familiar with bookmarking, but the problem with bookmarks is you run out of space. That bookmarks bar only has so much space, and they fall off the edge. So the little trick that I use, and I'll put a link in the show notes with a video. This sometimes is easier to see than hear. You're going to right-click on a bookmark, and you're going to go to Edit. And that's going to tell you the address of the bookmark and the name. Now, when you bookmark a website, the web developer will name the site, and it's usually some really stupid name that no one would ever care about. It's 1,000 characters long. You're going to delete the name entirely. Okay. Most websites have a little tiny icon. It's called a favicon that will allow you to identify the site. You can identify your bookmark by that little icon. You don't even need the name. So I calculated this. If you do it the traditional way, you just bookmark it and don't delete the name, you can fit roughly 8 to 10, maybe 12 if you're lucky, bookmarks. If you use the favicon trick, you can fit 20 or 30. It's doubles or triples the number of icons. So, I got my bank bookmarked. Like, I can identify the Capital One logo and, QuickBooks and my web host, like, what those look like. And it works great. So it's a fun, easy little trick to add more bookmarks and then also access your tabs easier.
Yeah, I can't live without any of that stuff. And one thing to add to your pin tabs is that when you go back into Chrome, if you close Chrome and you go back into Chrome, whatever tab you had pinned will automatically open again. So you don't have to go back in and open Gmail and Drive and Classroom. Those will automatically load. So pin tabs are like a shortcut with loading that web page.
Now I'm going to just warn the person who's super excited right now and is about ready to go pin all the tabs. If you pin 10, 15 tabs, it'll take your computer 30 minutes to boot up. So
that's not recommended.
3 to 5 is probably the recommended number. Now, both of these strategies individual users can do on their own, but if you are an IT admin, you can actually do both of these things for your students. You can automatically open tabs and you can push bookmarks to student accounts. So if you want to bookmark, particularly useful sites for students, they would just show up there for students to access. They don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's good to mention because, students, we tend to push everything out to students, and tell them, hey, bookmark this, bookmark that, download this. But through the admin console, the administrator can push all that information out to them. And then they'll have like a bookmark drop down in the browser, and it'll show all the bookmarks that, that was set. So that's good to mention as well. So just let your Google administrator know what bookmark you need for your students, and then it's available for everyone, not just your set of students.
Yep. It's a really great trick, especially for, I'd say, media specialists, who a lot of times kind of spearhead, the use of databases, primary source material, citations, things like that. And all of those resources can be bookmarked for easy access, all the things your school pays for. If you're using Brain Pop or Turnitin or Citation Machine or whatever your resources are, they're ready for students.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So what's your next tip?
All right. Last one I've got for you, Kim, is back to our touchscreen conversation. So I am a huge believer of touchscreen devices. I think that it is ridiculous that non-touchscreen devices exist in the year 2020. Like, why? It's ridiculous. All right, I'm going to hopefully not offend all of your users, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it anyways. Why don't MacBooks have a touchscreen? That is the dumbest limitation ever.
Oh, see?
You have a company who makes one of the best touchscreen devices, the iPad, ever. And they're like, oh, we're not going to put a touchscreen on a MacBook, but we're going to charge you $2,200 for it. Like, that's insanity.
So I didn't know that, honestly. Like,
you cannot buy a MacBook with a touchscreen. They do not exist.
Even the new one that just really?
Nothing. Nope.
Wow.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm not a Mac user, so I'm not.
I will never buy a laptop that does not have a touchscreen. It adds so much additional capability, and it doesn't even cost that much. Yeah. I priced it out. I've got a detailed price analysis on my website. It costs on average somewhere between $30 and $60 to add a touchscreen to a device.
So what's the holdback? Why wouldn't they do it? That should
because
be like
they want you to buy an iPad.
Really?
Yep. Come on, it's Apple. They want you to buy an iPhone and an iPad and an Apple Watch and the AirPods, and every device should be touchscreen. So I strongly encourage school administrators, when you buy new Chromebooks, you absolutely must buy touchscreen. It does not cost that much extra, but it adds so much additional capabilities. We talk about elementary students who are much more inclined to touch to navigate. You talk about math teachers who can add so much value when they're doing math. I know you have talked extensively about Jamboard. Using Jamboard without a touchscreen is not fun. It's not going to be a good experience.
Nope, I agree.
Chromebooks are Android compatible now. Using Android apps without a touchscreen device does not make sense. You got to have a touchscreen.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, John. I had no idea that MacBooks didn't have touchscreen.
Now I would say, in addition to a touchscreen, I recommend a digital stylus as well. Now, not very many Chromebooks come with an integrated stylus, but any touchscreen device can use a stylus.
So it doesn't matter what type of
it does matter what type. Now, this is the frustrating part, is because there's different types of digitizers. I don't want to get too far lost in the weeds here, but you have EMR, you've got Universal Stylus Initiative, USI. There's different types of digitizers and pens. You have to figure out what type of touchscreen you have, so you buy the right pen. I think there's like 3 different technologies behind the stylus. Again, it's a little bit of a tricky thing because, boy, as a teacher, I have no desire to kids can't bring a pencil to class, let alone keep track of a stylus. $20 is not expensive, but when you're a $20 pencil is expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to hold everybody to you have to have a stylus, but it definitely, for teachers anyways, if you want to grade, annotate, lecture, and draw on the screen, you're definitely going to have a better experience if you have some type of digital stylus. I bought one on Amazon for $20.
And you use that with your HP Chromebook? I
do. Yep. So I have the Pixelbook pen, which is much more expensive. That one's like $100. That's similar to the Apple Pencil. It's great, but it's excessive. So, my favorite tools to annotate with the Chromebook, hands down, my favorite would be Screencastify. So I do all my videos with Screencastify. They have annotation. And so I'm talking, I can circle, draw, annotate right on the screen. A lot of times if I'm doing images, like if I do a screenshot and I want to annotate on top of it, I use Chrome Canvas, which is Google's, very lightweight editor. It's built in the same tech as Jamboard. Very simple tool. Here's a new one people may not be as familiar with. There's a Chrome extension called Paint Editor that will allow you to draw anywhere on your screen. So it's kind of similar to Screencastify, but you're not actually recording. So if you're in a Google Meet session, if you're doing a Zoom session and you're presenting, like even in like Google Slides, if you wanted to draw on top of your slides, this Paint Editor extension just lets you draw on top of anything.
Oh, okay. I have to check that out.
It's kind of like a interactive smart board kind of a thing, smart notebook, Promethean Planet kind of a tool. It's okay. I mean, it's kind of a simple drawing tool, but it gets the job done. You just
gets it done. Yeah.
Circle something, draw an arrow, highlight something on a map, something like that. And then I'll throw one more in. This is a bonus one. This one requires a little bit more explanation. I've got a podcast on this. So the Google Classroom Android app allows annotation on top of student work. I know you had Alice Keeler on. You guys were chatting about your new book. Great resource. It's a really nice way. Sometimes, look, I'm a very practical guy. Some things are just easier with a red pen.
Yeah.
So yes, I love commenting in Google Docs and revision history and all of that, but sometimes you just want to circle all the words that are spelled incorrectly. The Google Classroom Android app lets you do that. Now, a Chromebook can run the Android version of Classroom. You got a nice big screen. You get a stylus. It works beautifully.
And you're good to go. Yep.
I would not annotate student work using my phone. The screen's too small. It's too hard. But on my Chromebook, it works beautifully. I interviewed an English teacher on my podcast. So my podcast is the Chromebook Classroom podcast. So it's an English teacher. This was a couple years ago, so way before the pandemic. She is not a techie. So she's not the tech leader at the school, but they were sick. The English department were just sick of lugging around all the papers all the time. Just the physical weight of the papers. This is, high school English. They tested this strategy out. The school bought the Samsung Chromebook Plus for all the English teachers. It's a nice Chromebook, machine, but not super expensive. It has a pen, and they do all their grading digitally. Beautiful. They use the Google Classroom Android app. That's how they grade all their senior essays, AP, English, everything electronically.
And that Chromebook was Android enabled? Oh, okay.
Yep. I mean, pretty much any Chromebook that's built within the last 3 years can run the Android apps.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's actually a nice device. I was using that at my old job, but it felt different because it was more square.
It is, yeah.
And the keyboard's a little shorter or narrower.
It's a small one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I didn't like that touch. I didn't like that feeling in it when I was using it, but it was a really good device though.
It's a good device.
Nice.
I can't recommend it anymore just because it's kind of old now.
Well, it's old now, but at the time when it came out,
it was, yep.
It was, I think my school paid, I think it was like $500 for it. And like you said, it came with the stylus, but I just didn't like the feel of the keyboard and the screen.
Yeah, it is a 3:2 ratio. It's not the widescreen that a lot of people are used to.
Yeah. Is that what it was? 3:2?
Yeah, it's still old school monitor size.
Yeah, I didn't like that. And even now when I'm looking for a Chromebook to buy, I'm kind of I'm picky now because I know what I like.
What you like. Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I know what I don't like, so I just want something that I can, handle my demand right now. But yeah, that's actually a good advice as well. I know I'm fortunate at my school district where the math and science teachers all got new Chromebooks last year, and they're all touchscreen.
Mhm.
So with the intentions of downloading, I had downloaded the Android apps for those devices. So that the kids and the teachers can use the touchscreen capability. And I was one of those teachers that got it. You know, my classroom needs to have that as well, right? So, you know, so the kids were like, "Oh, this is touchscreen." Oh, and the more they realized it was touchscreen, the more they used it. So it was neat to see the transition from them not having one in their previous class and then coming to my class and then using it. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, I totally agree. Just having the ability of using some of the Android apps versus the web is even different, a different experience. So, you know.
Yeah. And that's why I'm such a big fan of the Chromebook, because in my opinion, a touchscreen Chromebook bridges the best features of an iPad and what tablets offer with the productivity power of a laptop with a keyboard.
Yeah.
I don't want to give up my touchscreen, and I don't want to give up my keyboard. And I don't feel that you have to compromise on either of those two things. Like, you get them both.
Yeah, you get them both with a Chromebook.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. Like, first of all, I'm not an Apple person. Anybody that knows me knows I'm not an Apple person. And I'm all Android, Google, you know, Pixelbook and all. But I had no idea. I didn't really think about the MacBooks not being touchscreen. I had no idea. To me, that just blows my mind. And then I knew that they were more expensive. But for me, it's like, it's a whole nother learning curve. I don't want to learn anything new. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, keep using the device that I know and I'm familiar with and be productive with it so I can get my work done.
Yeah. And I don't want to hate too much on Apple. I mean, obviously I'm the Google guy. I've got opinions.
We all have opinions. We're entitled.
Google, I love what Google is doing with the web. I'm still not 100% sold on Android on Chromebooks. The Android ecosystem, when compared with the App Store and Apple's ecosystem, still does not compare, in my opinion. Apple is much better. The apps are better. The integration is better. Now, I'm very hopeful.
They were the leader, right? I mean, they came out with all that first.
Yep. And I'm very hopeful. It's gotten a ton better. I mean, there was a time I couldn't even recommend using Android on Chromebooks. Today I use a handful. I use the Google Keep Android app. There's one called Pixaloop I was using earlier today. Instagram, I'll use that. So Google Classroom. So I am using Android apps much more so this year than in the past. And I think there's hope for the future. So both platforms have their kind of benefits, and I think competition is great. We're the beneficiaries. When Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, when all of those companies are strong and competing with one another, us, the consumers, are the beneficiaries because they're vying for our attention.
Yeah, I agree. Well, like you said, competition is a good thing. So
I agree.
There's nothing wrong with that. Well, anyway, thanks, John, for sharing all that information. I'm really glad that you came on and presented all those tips and tricks and, how we can all use Chromebooks. I know I learned a couple good tricks from you tonight, so I appreciate you being on. So
thanks, Kim.
I appreciate it. Before I leave, I just want to give a shout out to my new book with Alice Keeler, Stepping Up to Google Classroom. It's geared for beginners. So if everyone is using Google Classroom, and most people are nowadays, and you were just forced into it and really don't feel comfortable with it, you can get this book, Stepping Up to Google Classroom. It's 50 steps for beginners to get started, and it'll help you stay on course. So it's available on Amazon. And before we leave, let me just share my screen and make sure that I can share my website. So if you visit thesuitetalk.com, that's the SUITE talk.com, you will see the latest episode here. And you will be able to read more about the book on my homepage and see any of the latest episodes. If you'd like to be a guest on my show and pay it forward, please fill out the guest inquiry form. Right now, I'm scheduling for the summer. So I'm so thankful for that. I'm thankful for all of my guests that want to be on and share and help others. And if you would like to support my mission to pay it forward, you can be a sponsor. You can fill out the sponsorship form, and I will get back to you as soon as I can with that. If you click on the episode page, you can certainly find past episodes that I recorded and the show notes as well. You can also look at the Jamboard page. I have a lot of information about Jamboard, and I know Jamboard is really popular nowadays with remote learning, so you can click on that to learn more about Jamboard. And you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, my podcast on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, and subscribe to my newsletter as well. And that concludes the show. I'm back. Well, thanks, John. I really appreciate you being on. You have a lot of great resources that you share with your audience, and I am one of them. I am a fan, so I appreciate you being on and sharing and collaborating with me with this topic.
Awesome. Well, Kim, thank you for the invitation, and can't wait to listen to episodes with your future guests.
Thank you. And stay well and be safe, okay?
Thank you.
Take care. Don't hang up.